and welcome to another video. Today I am doing my January wrap-up. I can honestly say that I started this year off pretty good. I read 15 books in January, which I'm pretty proud of myself for that. Just so you know, a lot of these books I wrote reviews for on my book blog, so I will post the links below if you guys want to check them out. So the first book that I read this month was Fables Storybook Love, which is volume 3. This is a graphic novel, and I got them for Christmas, and I am loving them. This graphic novel series is about if all the fairy tale characters were actually real and living in New York secretly because they were driven out of their land by this mysterious bad guy, the Adversary. So this is kind of just following them trying to get their land back, trying to keep their existence secret, and I love it. This is such a fun series. It's my first graphic novel series I've read, and I am totally enjoying it. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Defiance by C.J. Redwine. I got this in my Black Friday book outlet haul, I believe, and I only gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't particularly like it. Surprisingly, the thing I did like about it was actually the romance between the two, which is something I never ever say. But this was kind of a weird mix of like dystopian, post-apocalyptic, weird, I really couldn't even say, I'm not sure. Like, supposedly the world ended and there's just a group of people left living, but there's like these weird tremor monster things and not magic, but it's kind of like Fantasylandish, except there's science and advanced science stuff, and it's just a really weird mishmash that did not quite work for me, and it didn't really seem to have much rhyme or reason, so I didn't have the best time with this book. The next book I read was Princess of Thorns by Stacey J. This book is kind of like a fairy tale retelling of Sleeping Beauty, kind of. It's about a girl and her brother, and they're kind of like the last heirs, I guess, to this land, and there's a prophecy about them, and her brother gets kidnapped, so she goes to try and save him, and she encounters a prince who kind of follows the storyline of the Seven Swans, or that fairy tale where the brothers turn into swans. I can't remember what it's called. And she disguises herself as a boy, and they travel across the land together, and I really liked this book. I like this book because although there were some like technical issues and it wasn't, you know, the most amazing, well-written book ever, it was really fun. And my opinion is always biased when it comes to fairy tale retellings because I love them so much that I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Suspicion by Alexandra Monir. I did not like this book one bit. This book is about a girl who, when she's younger, her like big chunk of her family, who are like rich British aristocrats, almost royalty, they die in a fire, and she finds out she's got plant growing magic. She later finds out that her grandfather and her cousin passed away, leaving her the heir to this estate. So she goes, and there's a mystery, and there's a romance, and there's kind of magic. I only gave this book 1 out of 5 stars, and that was even pushing it, and it was really bad. Like, I never try to be rude when I have a problem with the book, but this one was really bad. It had the most ridiculous romance of my life. The magic was so boring and so lame, and it wasn't even interesting. The mystery was silly. It was really bad. And the cover was pretty. That was the thing. The cover was pretty, and it drew me in, and I should have known better. The next book I read was The Clockwork Scarab by Colleen Gleason, and then after that I read The Spirit Glass Charade, also by Colleen Gleason. This book is about 2 girls that team up, one of which who is the sister of Bram Stoker from Dracula, and the other one who is the niece of Sherlock Holmes. So they kind of form a dream team to take out bad guys and deal with semi-supernatural mysteries. These books were okay. I gave them both 3 out of 5 stars. They were pretty fun. They just weren't the best well written. They weren't, you know, didn't have the best character development, things like that. But they were fun. They had kind of subtle steampunk that I liked. The mysteries were okay. The characters were fun. They had some silly romance. It was definitely lighthearted reading, and it was okay. Now the next book I read was White Hot Kiss by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and holy cow, I love this book so much. It was my first Jennifer L. Armentrout book, and now I'm kind of in like a Jennifer L. Armentrout Armentrout phase. I'm reading Wicked right now by her. Anyway, I loved this book so much. It was absolutely amazing. I'm not going to gush about it. I did a review video that I will post below and a review on my blog. But I loved it. And then after that, I read Stone Cold Touch, which is the sequel, and I loved it so much too. I just can't. I just can't. It's so good. So good in like the most guilty pleasure way possible, and I had so much fun with these books. They were fantastic. They both got 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. I got this for Christmas, and the cover is beautiful. Unfortunately, I didn't like the book so much. I had a lot of high expectations with this because I am like a huge Doctor Who fan, so the whole like parallel world thing, potential different timelines and stuff really drew me in, and I was so intrigued by that. And it kind of ended up being really romance heavy, and none of the worlds they went to they stayed in for particularly long, so there wasn't as much like interesting other worlds, different people sort of thing that I was hoping to get. I ended up actually only giving this book 2 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Don't Look Back by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I ordered it because I read White Hot Kiss and wanted more of her stuff. I don't normally read books that don't have fantasy or supernatural or anything like that, but murder mystery stuff is okay. I mean, I'm interested in mystery stuff, so I liked it okay. It's hard for me because I like supernatural fantasy stuff so much that when I'm reading something without it always kind of feels like it's missing something. So I read this one, and it's about a girl that she wakes up and she has been like wandering in the woods, and her friend is missing, and she's been assaulted and all this stuff, and she cannot remember what happened. She doesn't even remember who she is. So she kind of gets this chance to start over, and she finds out that she was kind of an awful, horrible bitch when she was, who she was before. And it was really interesting. The romance didn't quite do it for me, which I was really disappointed by because I loved the romance in Jennifer L. Armentrout's White Hot Kiss book. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Dune by Carrie Corp, not sure. This book is about 2 girls that go to Scotland, and they end up crossing over into a magical land called Dune, and possibly finding their soulmates and encountering magical fantasy shenanigans. I actually did not like this book very much. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It was very romance heavy, very insta-lovey, very dramatic. Not quite my thing. And I was really sad because I do love Scotland and I love fantasy, and I thought the mishmash was going to go really well, and it did not. The next book that I read was Exquisite Captive by Heather Demetrios. I liked this book okay. It was really interesting. It was about genies and things, which I'd never really read about before, and this girl that was like the last surviving heir of like a powerful genie race, basically, and she is being held captive by this guy, like having to grant wishes and things. And then this rebellion comes to try to recruit her, and it was really interesting. It was just kind of slow for me. I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars because while the concepts were really interesting and I liked the characters, there was insta-love, no thank you, and it was pretty slow. I thought a lot of stuff was going to happen because it started off pretty quick, and she was like being recruited by this rebellion, and I thought it was going to be really intense. And it really just slowed down, and not a whole lot happened in the book itself. The next book that I read was Partials by Dan Wells. I got this in one of my book outlet hauls, and everybody freaked out and was telling me how much I needed to read it. So I finally read it, and I loved it. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It was almost 5 out of 5 if it wasn't for the ending, which I won't talk about. But in this book, humans created artificial intelligence in the form of partials, which look just like people. They just operate a little different. And partials end up rebelling and killing a whole bunch of people. So what they think are the last remaining survivors are on Long Island. And there's this virus called RM going around that's killed off a huge percent of the population. And now when babies are born, they only live for like 3 days maximum. So this book is about a girl that decides she's going to cure the disease by capturing a partial. Part of the reason I love this book so much was because the science was really understandable to me. And it was really, really interesting. And this world, this post-apocalyptic world, was dark and gritty and really, really kind of disturbingly realistic. The next book I read was Burn for Me by Ilona Andrews. I love her other series, the Kate Daniels series, with a fiery passion. One of my favorite series ever, and definitely my favorite urban fantasy series. And so I read this one just on a whim, and it was really fun. I love her writing style, and I love her fun heroines, and these are adult books, so there is some more adult content, but it was really, really great and fun. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's about a woman, and they are living in a world where magic is kind of a thing, and it's inherited. The powers are inherited through families, through like intense breeding and weird stuff. You just have to read it. And this woman is a detective, and she's trying to capture this bad guy. So she hooks up with this mega powerful, reclusive, like murderer guy, and it was just so much fun. I had so much fun with this book. It was really great. Ilona Andrews is actually a husband and wife team, and they write under that name, and they know how to bring it. They make me laugh. They do super intense fight scenes. They always have really, really interesting storylines. The last book that I read this month was Princess of Thorns by Kresley Cole. I read this because a booktuber I really enjoy mentioned it, like the next book in some of her most anticipated of 2015, and I'd never even heard of the series, so I looked it up, ordered it from the library, read it, and I loved it. It was so good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was one of the most strangely mishmashed, interesting, bizarre books I've ever read, but it was so good. It was about this girl, and she's like kind of a popular brat living in like Louisiana or somewhere southern, and she meets this boy who has this Cajun accent that normally I'd be all over. Like, I like listening to Cajun accents just fine. But having to read around it was the worst thing of my life. I would love him as a character if his way of talking did not bother me so much. I know that sounds so shallow, but it was really hard, you guys. It was really, really hard. Anyway, she has all these dreams and nightmares about the end of the world, and it ends up coming true. And so there's kind of this weird mix of post-apocalyptic, like end of the world stuff, but then this fantasy thing where her and 21 or 22 other kids all are like embodiments of the major arcana in tarot cards. And it's just really strange, but it worked so well. And it was a really interesting, kind of surprisingly dark book. Okay, you guys, those are all the books I read this month. 15. Holy cow, I'm awesome. But really, I mean, I read some really good books. I think there was only one book on my whole list that I rated 1 star. And it was a really, really good start to the new year. Feel free and let me know what books you read last month, and if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. Like I said before, feel free and check out my reviews on my book blog that will be posted below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.